Welcome. I'm Chief Justice Loretta Rush. On behalf of the Indiana court system, as well as the judge, attorneys, and people involved in this case, thank you for answering the call to jury service today. The right to a trial by jury is one of the cornerstones of our democracy. When you serve as a juror, you are not just observing justice, you're delivering it. Jurors ensure that decisions are made fairly based on evidence and the rule of law, not on power, status, or influence. That role is essential to the integrity of our legal system and to the trust our communities place in it. We know that jury service can be a disruption to your daily life, but it is also one of the most meaningful contributions you can make as a Hoosier. The people whose cases come before a jury are relying on your attention, your care, and your good judgment. As you begin the jury selection process, I hope this short video gives you a clear understanding of how our courts work and prepares you for the vital role you may soon undertake. Once again, thank you for your time, your commitment, and your service.
You're making an important contribution by being here today. As a potential member of a jury, you're one of the most important parts of the Indiana justice system, and you're helping to ensure the constitutional rights guaranteed to all Hoosiers. The process is actually pretty interesting. Today, you'll hear evidence presented in court and make important decisions that affect people's lives. Let's find out what you can expect from your role as a potential juror.
You and a large group of fellow Hoosiers have been randomly selected to serve as potential jurors. You may have already been asked, or you soon will be asked, to fill out a questionnaire to help the court match the circumstances of each case to the most qualified jurors. This questionnaire explores important information about your background. It's merely a way for the court and lawyers to better understand your personal experiences and how they may influence your opinions about a particular case. The judge and attorneys always respect the privacy of your questionnaire. You can be assured that your answers are intended to be used for the purposes of this case and this case only.
Next, the judge will administer an oath to all of the potential jurors that simply affirms your willingness to tell the truth. The judge and attorneys then ask the other prospective jurors a series of questions. Lawyers call this part of the trial either voir dire or voir dire, which means to speak the truth. This is how the judge and attorneys strive to ensure they assemble a fair and impartial jury. In a way, they just want to get to know you a little better, especially if you're chosen to decide the case. During this questioning, you also have the opportunity to communicate openly with the attorneys and the court. Remember, the goal here is to create a fair and impartial jury. If you feel as though there's some critical piece of information about your background or personal circumstances that might influence your opinions in the case, this is the opportunity and your responsibility to let the court know your concerns.
Based on your questionnaire and your answers during questioning, you may be excused from jury service, and that's okay. It's not by any means a reflection on you personally. Many factors are considered to build an impartial jury. For example, maybe you have contacts with lawyers, family, or someone else possibly related to the case. The situation surrounding the case may just not be right this time for your jury service. But the next time you're asked to serve, the circumstances may prove to be perfect for you as a juror. Once you've been called to jury service, whether or not you're selected, you've fulfilled your obligation for at least 24 months.
Okay, now you're a member of the jury. First, let's meet some of the key people in the courtroom and how they'll interact with you during the trial. The first person, of course, is the judge. Judges have spent a lot of time studying the law, so at all times they strive to ensure that the law in Indiana is applied to the case in a fair and impartial way. At times, the judge speaks directly to the jurors to give specific instructions about the case. At other times, the judge talks directly to the attorneys. Be sure to pay close attention to any directions the judge gives you and the other jurors in order to help maintain that fairness in the courtroom.
Cases have different sides or parties who come before the court. Each party is typically represented by lawyers. You may hear one of these parties referred to as the plaintiff or the state, and the other party referred to as the defendant. Their roles will vary depending on the type of case you hear. In a civil case, the plaintiff is the party who brings the lawsuit to court, and the defendant is the one who's being sued. In a criminal case, the plaintiff is the state of Indiana, and the defendant is the one being accused.
Regardless of the type of case you hear, evidence is presented in the court. You must carefully evaluate this evidence with your fellow jurors in an effort to make informed decisions. Attorneys may call witnesses while evidence is presented. Witnesses are people who present you with testimony about something they saw or did that relates directly to the case. This testimony of a witness is considered a piece of evidence, along with the physical exhibits you consider during your final jury deliberations or discussions.
More about evidence later, but for now, let's introduce the bailiff. The bailiff is the only communication link between you and the court and can address your personal private needs throughout the case. Need a pad of paper to take notes? Ask the bailiff. Have any questions about courtroom procedures? Write the question down and give it to the bailiff, who will deliver it to the judge. Most likely, there will be others in the courtroom as well. There will be a court reporter recording the proceedings. You might even have an audience in the back of the courtroom. Media may be present. The rules do not allow them to show you on camera or in pictures or to identify you. With these main players in place and the jurors seated in the jury box, the trial is ready to begin.
The judge starts by reading some introductory instructions. Then the attorneys typically present opening statements that will give you an overview of the case according to each side. Following the opening statements, evidence is presented, which can be either the testimony of witnesses or the presentation of physical exhibits. Each side has the right to examine, ask questions, and cross-examine the evidence as it's being presented. You may not realize this, but jurors even have the right to ask questions as each witness concludes their testimony. Now, this isn't the time for you to jump up and shout, "Where were you on the night of August 12th?" Real courtroom procedures don't work that way. Any questions from the jury can be submitted to the judge for consideration, and the judge for your trial provides the proper procedures for submitting questions to the court.
Jurors are allowed to discuss evidence in the jury room during recesses if all jurors and alternates are present. In participating in these discussions, you should keep an open mind and not decide about the outcome of the case until you participate in final deliberations. Pay close attention to all evidence introduced during the trial. The presentation of evidence and the laws presented by the judge are the only things that you can consider during your jury deliberations, along with your own common sense, of course. Remember that lawyers' arguments cannot be considered as evidence in your deliberations. Only answers witnesses provide during the trial and the physical exhibits allowed by the judge are to be considered evidence. As a juror, you will bring your own education, experience, knowledge, and beliefs. Be sure you're not making quick, instantaneous decisions about what you see or hear. Our brains often make quick, automatic associations that can impact our decision making. It is important to carefully review all evidence to ensure you are deciding the case based solely on evidence and not on gut responses, automatic assumptions, or preconceived notions.
While the court appreciates your willingness and enthusiasm to serve, you are not permitted to go out on your own and play detective to seek additional evidence or information about the case. You must not visit a crime scene or attempt to talk to a witness. You must not read, watch, or listen to any media or other communication sources that could present information about the trial. You must not communicate with anyone about the case until it is over. This includes using methods like social media, email, text messaging, blogs, and online chat rooms.
As the case nears its end, the attorneys present closing arguments, and the judge gives jurors their final instructions. Once the proceedings are complete, the bailiff escorts jurors to the jury room to begin final deliberations in an effort to reach a verdict. You've sat quietly and listened intently throughout the entire trial, and you weren't allowed to talk to lawyers, family, or friends who might influence your decision. Now, in the jury room, it's your turn to let your voice be heard. You and your fellow jurors must now come to a unanimous decision. It's a very important and sometimes challenging task. You should remain fair and impartial at all times, just as you would want a juror to be if you were involved in a trial.
So, where do you begin? There are no set rules for conducting jury deliberations. One thing you should do is select a foreperson, someone who presides over the deliberations. The foreperson also completes and signs the final verdict form before the jury returns to the courtroom. Let's say you're the foreperson today. You and your fellow jurors have just heard testimony from witnesses and seen physical exhibits about your case. You now collectively consider the importance of that evidence by openly discussing your opinions and observations. You should make sure that each juror has an opportunity to discuss their views openly and that everyone is patient and tolerant of each other's thoughts and observations.
Finally, once you reach a unanimous decision, the foreperson completes the verdict form, signs it, and notifies the bailiff, who will return you to the courtroom with your fellow jurors. The judge then reads the verdict aloud in court. Once you're dismissed, that's it. You have no obligation to discuss the case with anyone unless you want to. The Indiana court system respects the contribution you're making here today. The courts strive to be fair and reasonable and want to make your experience in court as positive as possible.
Today, you're helping preserve fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution. You may not have realized it when you first came here today, but because you showed up to serve on a jury, you're supporting an important link that makes our justice system work.
On behalf of all the judges, lawyers, litigants, and people who use the Indiana court system, thank you.